Okay, so let's get the latest from Fox News Digital as they had this today, an exclusive saying that U.S. investigators have officially concluded that attempted Trump assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks did act alone. Fox News Digital speaking for about an hour with FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. They also spoke with a senior official with direct involvement in the Butler, Pennsylvania investigation. Retired Marine Intelligence Officer, National Security Analyst, and host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfer, is here. Hal, they say that a massive team pursued interviews with thousands of foreign and domestic individuals as part of this global investigation. People have had a ton of questions about Crooks ever since this shooting happened. We still don't have a clear motive, do we? And is it fair to say there's a good chance we never will?
Austin, I think that is fair to say. We don't know his motive. I mean, we can kind of guess a little bit at his motive, but it's really not clear. But what they did do, and it was really kind of interesting that they got into the details, they interviewed over 1,000 people. It's a huge amount of interviews. They did over, I think, 10 search warrants. They did 100 subpoenas. They went all over the world. They were looking for any connection. A lot of what he was doing, he was basically in Pennsylvania, in that central part of Pennsylvania. So they really looked at his online connectivity, and that was something that certainly, as events were unfolding last July, right after the shooting, the question was he connected to somebody else? Did somebody else maybe act as a guru that inspired him to go do these acts? Was somebody else pulling the strings or manipulating him to do something like this? And there was a certain amount of operational savvy that he kind of showed with using a drone to do a reconnaissance before the event. Obviously he was able to get up on that part of the building and successfully fire the weapon. So we're just thankful that he didn't hit. He didn't kill the president, but it was a deadly attack. So the question was there some sort of training? Was he connected to somebody physically, virtually, something? And the FBI says they looked all over the world. They interviewed folks overseas. They looked at all his connections. There was a kind of a loose linkage online with maybe, or at least some sort of affinity with an Antifa figure. And of course, Antifa was recently designated a terrorist group, William Tepes, and they found nothing there. They said apparently he was just looking at, was interested in what the guy was saying, but they found no connection. So I think that was actually very good. And right now, certainly, look, there have been a number of assassination attempts where it wasn't clear what happened. The Kennedy assassination, JFK, I mean, that was back in 1963. There are still profound questions about that assassination. So, and then of course you go into, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. There are big questions. So the FBI really just apparently went all out to try and make sure that there weren't a lot of outstanding questions on this attempt.
And they really want to make it clear that there's no cover-up here. Brooke Sigmund, by the way, had this exclusive with Fox News Digital. She quotes Dan Bongino as saying that we have reviewed this case over and over, looked into every nugget. We have spoken to the families, to the president. There is no cover-up here, Bongino says. The FBI also says that Crooks left no manifesto, Hal. How common is it for us to have a high-profile suspect, yet have no real understanding of why he did what he did? Is that just a frustrating reality that we have to accept sometimes with these things?
In this case, it's a frustrating reality, and that's also the reason that I think the FBI, really went as above and beyond. I don't know if it's above and beyond, but they really just went full throttle trying to figure it out because there was no manifesto. Usually when you have an individual, a lone wolf like this that goes out and does something where trying to kill the president or kill the candidate that's running for president, that they will leave something. They're motivated by their thoughts. They have their own, for lack of a better term, motivations. I know that sounds bad, motives that are motivations, but usually they like to get their message out there. There's something that drove them to this act. In this case, there was nothing, and that makes you start to look for, well, was he connected to a conspiracy? Was there something else going on? We may never actually fully understand why he did what he did. Certainly there's a confluence of personal, psychological, emotional issues, as there are with most of these situations. But there may have also been a political, ideological side, but we're not quite sure what that side actually was, and so hence the need to do such a thorough investigation because there isn't a clear motive.
As you alluded to, the FBI, they conducted more than 1,000 interviews, reviewed 2,000 tips. They served and executed more than 10 search warrants, 100 subpoenas. They analyzed 13 electronic devices that were associated with either Crooks or his family members. By the way, Brooks Singman also says, the FBI says, there is no foreign connection in this case. There's no individual that is outside U.S. borders or inside U.S. borders that had any role in directing him, inspiring him, or assisting him in any way, and that includes foreign governments. I know you read through Fox News Digital's exclusive reporting, Hal. When you read what they put out, what kind of picture is painted of Crooks? What kind of guy was he?
He's a classic lone wolf. He was motivated on his own. He did all this planning and preparation on his own. He obviously did a bunch of research on this, but he didn't. He was only 20 years old. It wasn't like there was a lot of life to work with there, but you could see where he had a lot of personal problems that he was trying to overcome. And in some cases, I shouldn't say many cases, but in some cases, we see where there's a transference. They feel great frustration in their own life, and somehow they find a way to transfer that onto someone else. Could be a celebrity, could be a politician, and we've seen this time and again where this does happen. We're fortunate that he didn't. We're fortunate that he didn't kill the president or more seriously injure him, but it was a deadly an attack. It did kill somebody. It injured a couple of other people beyond that. There's a lot to consider there in terms of the psychology. I'm sure that the FBI profilers have looked at him far more in depth than with far more knowledge than I look at him from afar. But it will be some time before they're actually able to piece together exactly what were the confluence of factors that went into this. I'm just really glad, though, that they did this very thorough investigation because it needed to be done. There was just a lot of questions on this. And of course, you remember this wasn't the only attempted assassination, that he was playing golf in Florida later on and somebody else tried to kill him. And it does make you wonder, was there some sort of conspiracy out there? Was there something else going on? Was somebody else pulling the strings? And it's good that the FBI came out and was so transparent and so thorough in how they put this forth, and especially so transparent to the public, saying, hey, this is what we did, and made it very clear.
This event happened 2 Julys ago. Now we are nearly a year and a half later. I still, up until today, had heard murmurs every once in a while, people questioning whether or not it was actually a bullet that struck President Trump's ear. Hal, that's something that they also put to bed in this report.
Oh, they made that absolutely clear. Kash Patel made that clear. He says it's a bullet. And he also kind of said something about his predecessor. He says, we all knew it was a bullet. Everybody knew it was a bullet. And there was that thing out there, well, maybe it hit the podium, or maybe it was a piece of something else that flew up and hit his. And the way it was kind of put forth in those right around that time was almost like to diminish what had happened, to make it seem like it was less serious than it was. And that had a political context as well. I mean, a lot of people were, I'm sure, a little frustrated with that explanation and putting forth something like that, because it tended to lessen the severity of what just occurred. And of course, in the midst of a political campaign like that, everything has context in a political campaign. I mean, there's nothing that happens. If you get out of the car and you stumble, that has political context. So everything like this, and there was a feeling that maybe they were kind of twisting the explanation around to make it sound like it was something less than it was. But he put that to bed. He says, look, it was a bullet. There's no question about that. It was very clear.